Hi, everybody. It's Laura Eisenhower. I am joined by two very special guests who are great friends, and I just can't wait to hear where we're going to go because both of these men are full on wisdom, knowledge, experience, and just put so many important perspectives for us all to ponder. And so I just want to introduce you both, and if you could just take turns sharing a couple words about yourself and a little bit about your work. Whoever wants to start. Andrew?
I have a lot of people already know. I've been on Laura's show quite a few times, stemming back to many of the old days. I'm Andrew Bartzis, known as the Galactic Historian. I read the Akashic Records. I'm a traumatologist. I study people's traumas and help them to get out of it, as well as the self-help, motivation, and all the other realms that dealing with psychic awareness, building your skill sets. And I look forward to having a great show today.
Awesome. And Seth, I know.
So yes, my name is.
We connected not long ago. I'm sure everybody remembers. Okay, go ahead.
So yes, my name is Seth Pruzansky. I was invited onto Laura's show. We had an amazing interaction, amazing communication. That led to me meeting Andrew. Andrew went and I did a show. We went live. We found incredible flow together, and we realized the necessity of more people coming forward, willing to look beyond the surface of how everything appears and start tapping into the core of why we're here and supporting each other from that perspective. So
awesome. So there's just a lot of topics we're going to dive into, particularly what we're dealing with in the here and now with the pandemic, with the mental overload coming in, just all the information coming in and people processing. And you talk about this a lot. Andrew, do you want to just kind of lead us into where we can begin with that? Because you were mentioning some things that are really important to bring to the table today.
So I use this thing, everybody's beach of awareness eventually erodes away at the information tidal waves that continuously come at us. No matter what it is that you believe, pandemic or not, sickness or no sickness, Trump, no Trump, it is still an ebb and flow that is continuously eroding your capacity to stand in your truth, no matter what it is, the situation that you believe. And this constant flow of energy that's constantly getting at your core, constantly trying to engage you into debate that turns into charge and polarity to exchange with people, places, and things, constantly engaging you and dirtying your own light. The journey to return to your own self does mean turning it off. And turning it off in such a way where you can still be aware of what's going on in the population, but at the same time, disconnected enough to know I can't let it into my core because it is beginning to dirty my own aspect of who I am, what I'm doing, what I'm growing for, what self-healing, self-nurturing, and self-discovery truly means without all of this information guiding me down false paths that will only lead me into debates and arguments with zealots and martyrs who their way is the only way. As long as somebody's believing their way is the only way, they don't allow you your room to grow. Whether they're right or wrong is irrelevant at that moment. It is a world of free choice. And something I discovered with Seth is coherency. Now, all three of us are going to be talking about the same thing, and the semantics are our words. We're all going to go from a different angle to decide the same perception and understanding heart coherency, the balance of the galactic wisdom, the Gaia-Sophia, all of that still is letting that in while you're just putting up this barrier, this bubble that says, I'm allowing this more dense frequency of higher wisdom in me versus the this, the that, the Facebook post, the CNN, the Fox News, whatever it is, it doesn't have greater meaning than your faith internal to you.
Beautiful, yes. Thoughts on that, Seth?
everything he said is perfect. It's so beautiful. And this is the thing, people don't realize we have become so addicted to consuming information from the outside in to the degree we think it's normal. And this addiction has run rampant in so many people to the degree that we have lost ourselves. We have lost this internal state of coherence that Andrew mentioned. And as long as we keep doing that, it will just continue to erode our health our well-being, and it will disempower us even more. Whereas the opposite, if we say, you know what, enough is enough, inside of me is innate intelligence in my body that's way more intelligent than I am. So if I take what little bit of intelligence I have, really make a habit out of focusing on that innate intelligence, then a new intelligence forms. It's like you are still there, but you in alignment with this energy that is letting you be here, that's causing your heart to beat. And this is the state that when more and more people return to, we're going to see real changes in the world, because everybody's going about consuming information and then trying to change the world with the same level of thinking and feeling that essentially has created it. So this internal state, when we get into it, we commit to it, this is how we can make change.
Yes, and I just hope more people just do that. I mean, that's crucial because we're generating energy all the time. And if it just gets hooked into these, you know, loops, I mean, it takes our vital creative power that could actually manifest a world we want to see. And it's just almost like, I mean, that's how our energies are siphoned, wouldn't you say? I mean, that's the whole idea of it all. It's not about the right or wrong. It's about the conflict and what the conflict produces and how that drains us and wastes our time and wastes our vital energy. And I've been a little bit more active on Facebook as far as just because the election's coming up. And I feel like I've hit a place of, okay, I've said enough. This is how I feel about it. I'm ready to shut it down. I don't want to look at the comments. I'm not even going to read the comments anymore. And I'm going to completely, shut it all down for a while, because I absolutely agree. And I can see what you're saying. I mean, and what happens when you know, gets all into that. It's just, it's no fun. So when you see though, like what's going on in Victoria, Australia, and this election time and this possible, you know, pandemic, whatever, what do you guys feel about just where everything's going, that we can literally generate or be grounded on a positive timeline and we don't have to sound the alarms, you know, for people? It's just really, I mean, like, what are your thoughts on how to handle these times? Because
I have an interesting perspective here. You and I have been presenting in this field for well over a decade. And how many before this were hard times? Quite a few. If we go back to right after 2012, the arrests were coming then, weren't they? They were just not Wolfowitz or the Pfizer report. It was something else. It was another person saying another thing, and another day went by. Getting to the acceptance that tomorrow will happen no matter what history says. That's the first step for those people who are caught in the quagmire of it's happening tomorrow. That tomorrow will happen. It won't be the end of the day. It won't be going down to your prepper stores and counting how much food bags you have. Give yourself the opportunity to go, tomorrow can happen. I can go out and have a dinner. I can read a book. I can do this. I could do that. It is not this end that's trying to be projected at you, that you have to make a choice that isn't good for you.
what about like what's happening in like Victoria, Australia, as being sort of a window into what might happen here? But let me, before we go into that, Seth, do you want to speak on what Andrew was just saying or share your thoughts?
So, well, actually, now that you started going into what's going on in Victoria, I think that's maybe more important. Only in this regard is,
okay, yeah, go for it.
Being somebody who has been incarcerated, you know, spent literally in prison, being treated like a dog, like being just the worst behavior. We as individuals don't know how to do anything more than what we're used to doing. So people's natural responses to authority and people dropping the hammer on them are going to be reactive. They're going to be responsive. They're going to be scared. They're going to have all these feelings like, I'm a victim. And by all natural means, yes, they are a victim at first. But what if we do something different instead of feeling like a victim? What if people say, you know what? This sucks. I don't like the authority. I don't like everything that's being dropped and put down on me. But what if instead of responding with fear, what if instead of responding with, oh my God, what's going to happen to the world? You instead calm down. You say, you know what? I don't understand why this is all happening, but what if it is happening for a greater reason? And you start to get into a state of calm, and then you start thinking and feeling in alignment with that. Because I've done that personally in situations that I did not think I was going to get through, and situations that I knew if I did get through, I would be riddled with trauma and just tons of mental issues for the rest of my life. But I made a different choice, and I chose to just trust it. Even though I couldn't see the greater thing of what it was actually for, I trusted it. And you know what? Not only did I get through those things, but I was able to recognize that this is something so much greater than any of what's being presented in the mainstream. And if we can trust the part of ourselves that feels that might be a possibility, then that potential will come out into our awareness.
Right. You guys have such complementary like wisdom too. And going back to you, Andrew, you know, just really talking about just knowing, you know, you're going to wake up and you're just going to deal with the reality in front of you. And we have the ability to make the most out of the resources that are around us. Like you said, go for a walk, read a book. I mean,
accept that the day could be a day is what it comes down to. I got something to add about the Victoria. So one of my co-hosts on the comedy show, Monty, he called me up and asked me, should I go to this thing that's going to be happening? I go, no, a lot of people are going to be arrested. I had several other people call. 2 of them have been arrested. Their life is completely changed. And the other 2 saw everything that they saw there. But Monty decided to stay home. And what did he do? He still supported the march. He still was able to voice his opinion. But in his direct experience, he didn't see the violence that was there. He didn't get hit by the smoke bangs. He didn't get arrested. He didn't get whacked in the head. If people want that experience, it's waiting for you. That trauma is there waiting. The police said it was going to happen, and it happened. These are examples of false synchronicities.
Tell us about false synchronicities a little bit.
Things that are leading you down the path of charge and polarity for charge and polarity's sake. Stuff that will create long-term karmas for you to deal with again and again and again and again.
Right. So it's some event or something falling into place, but it's not based in the organic flow of one's purpose or passion or truth. And
as well as there's the arrest, that's the trauma. And then there's the tickets and the court dates that come after that. Most of those people are going to be facing $10,000 to $15,000 in fines, COVID fines. Yeah. There's a $6,000 no mask fine. Hey, they're going to pour on so much on these people. It's going to be ridiculous.
Right.
And why? Why would somebody voluntarily put themselves through that when they have the ability to make a different choice? You know, Andrew brought up such an important point that I think so many miss, which is everybody thinks the end of the world is around every corner. You know, we buy into it because we just feel like, oh my God, what if this happens? We're so afraid of the unknown. But it's gotten to such a point and such a degree, it's so intense that people are literally, how many predictions? Oh, the world's going to come to an end at this date. They have been saying this forever and ever and ever, and it just keeps going. Mm-hmm. So go ahead. Yeah. So at what point do we say, you know what, like maybe instead of getting wrapped up in the fear, the drama, the trauma, the karma, all the stuff that comes out of that, what if we just calm down a little bit and see it from a different perspective, being objective? Like, that's the thing. We have forgotten how to be objective, and we've forgotten how to think critically, and people just allow the media or other people to do their thinking for them.
The opium pipe is so strong, there are those that cannot put down the pipe of opium. And opium becomes truly toxic on one's soul when they're living on hope and nothing but hope alone.
Yes. I mean, we're multidimensional beings, and we have to understand, like, we're going through, anytime we go through a dark night of the soul, anytime we really have to do the inner work, it's really about, you know, lifting the veils within ourselves to recognize a much, much larger picture. Because the planet of death is also the planet of rebirth, alchemy, and transformation. So we've been so taught to fear death that we'll do anything to, you know, prevent it, but in fearing it, we block ourselves from the full experience of a transformation, which means that we have to kind of go through a personal death or an ego death or a death of our belief systems or something that's holding us hostage. We need to be able to let that go. And then we find that calm. And when we allow ourselves to actually transform and let go, I mean, that is just a part of, you know, our creative ability to open up to more dimensions than the limited viewpoint that the media and this lower personality matrix gets us caught up in. I mean, and don't you think that's what's kind of required? I mean, like your journey, Seth and Andrew, you know, obviously to get the sort of wisdom and awareness and creative power that you both hold, you had to go deep inside of yourselves. I mean, and this is a grand opportunity for people. And I just hope they unhook. So you want to speak on that, or like,
yeah. So what I've encountered is since 2012, the amount of people that are in our niche audience has been greatly reduced. And I talked about this on your other show. They've gone to other subject matters. And the consciousness spirituality community, the conspiracy community, and the self-help community have all been put into one micro community, one micro to macro community. Everything that the self-help people need, the conspiracy people need. Everything the consciousness and spirituality people need, they discover that the self-help and the conspiracy have the fundamental tools to make them grow. So all three of them have fundamental tools they all have to share. Example, the paranoid person that's in the conspiracy group needs the self-help motivation and consciousness movement to begin to advance themselves. So now being put into this niche market, but the grand reduction of the overall people interested in the Great Awakening has been put down to a small gender group of women 35 to 65 who are running the community. It used to be 20, 30 million. It is about 2 to 3 million now. That's hard facts, generic numbers that can be read across the board. We need to reach out to the people that left the community, and we need to find new ways, because they're looking for their own different things, whether it's through the tarot, through self-help, through consciousness, through Nassim Haramein, or any of those other guys who are still presenting spirit and science are the same thing when we allow them to be agreeable to each other. And that's really what our niche community has to be able to reach out the tendrils to all these other communities and go, we're holding all the keys to advancement here. How do we share them and not start fighting each other? Classic examples, the Q movement took over by the Karens and the Kens, to the point a lot of people walk away from Q because they're attacked by all of this information that they don't want to hear from them.
Right. I hear you. What are your thoughts, Seth?
I love it. I mean, he just was able to break it down into details that are so true. And, you know, Andrew's looking at statistics. He's not making it up. He's like literally looking at hard data. And so, like, when you look at it from that perspective, it kind of puts things into perspective of, look at how distracted everybody's getting. Everybody's so focused on the world around them that they have forgotten about the world inside of them. And really, like, that's the return. You know, and back to what you said, Laura, like, people are so afraid of death that they have forgotten how to live, you know? And the thing is, like, with ego death, they call it, I don't personally, like, I don't look at it, I more look at it like it's an expansion, right? Nothing actually dies. More what it's like is the perspective that you hold now becomes expanded. And as you become expanded, the things that limited it just fall away naturally, because it just feels better to be in an expansive state. But a lot of people aren't in an expansive state because they're listening to everything and everybody, and they're going a million different directions, and they're fighting and they're complaining. And it's like, calm down, take some deep breaths, heart-brain coherence, like Andrew mentioned in the beginning, that is such an easy state to get into. And it is so profound because even though it's easy, it's the gateway to everything.
It's your birthright. That's your birthright state.
Mm-hmm.
It's the state that most people are in as kids. And that's the thing. When we're in that awe and wonder, we're in a coherent state. But why did we get rid of that? We sold it out. We gave it away.
Yeah.
We can get it back.
Oh, totally. I mean, it's always a part of who we are. It can be ignored. It can be neglected. It can be we can be distracted away from it. There's so much indoctrination in the way that we're raised, and so much targeting on our self-esteem and our need to feel accepted or you know, that I notice in a lot of people. And I felt that a lot growing up, but I was very careful of letting it consume me because I just saw the programmings. And so I definitely, you know, when people talk about ego death, sometimes they do talk about or mean like the death of the ego, like something's wrong with the ego. The ego is an incredible gift. And I totally agree. It's more about expansion. And then the things that don't serve one and whatever identity they bought into begins to fall away. And the true authentic self, the ego self, integrated with soul and spirit connection is, you know, the expression of one's identity without the engineered version. So can we like talk about like the dark technologies and social engineering and mind control? And
so social engineering is designed to have the byproduct at the end, psychopaths and narcissists. Narcissists are low quality psychopaths, and psychopaths are people that ended up in high-level corporate and government positions who then could be advanced into different levels of psychopathy to be used in a variety of military to non-military situations and reasons, whether it's religion, direct attack, so on and so forth. Psychopathy or psychopath personalities are what they're trying to create through the social engineering. And they start at the youngest age by indoctrinating you into using learning as a way of disassociating your heart-brain coherence. Memorization versus knowing, or taking you away from pattern recognitions that are commonly used and then putting you into a forced pattern recognition that doesn't work for the way that you learn. The education system from the beginning is designed to create disassociations within your mind, the way that teachers are treated, the way that books are created, so on and so forth. The social engineering begins there. And then as big children begin to advance into the different layers of social engineering, they become 8, 9, and 10-year-olds. 10-year-olds become 11, 12. There are different layers that pull them into narcissism, or pull them into psychopathy energy, or pull them into a variety of the other traits that will force an identification onto them. Forced identification is a big part about social engineering. Once you're identified, you accept it because it's in your papers.
what are your thoughts on that? And just, yeah, kind of what you're seeing around you in terms of that and how much that plays into the madness of these times, Seth.
And this is why Andrew and I have been clicking so much. I just love the way he presents all this stuff and lays it out. But I think it's really easy for anybody to look back in their own life and see this stuff. You know, if you look back and you look at the public institutions or the school systems that a lot of us went to, right away, right in the beginning, it's almost like we are taught to compete with one another. We're taught to see the other kid as different or separate, somebody that we got to climb the ladder and get above. It's a dog eat dog world. You know, we're indoctrinated with all these different belief systems that are based upon competing with one another, so that eventually those who are going to make it through certain levels of competition are going to find their pecking order to the top of these big corporations, and that's happened to all of us for the most part. The ways of the world are made so that the people who are meant to be quote unquote leaders, which leaders in this perspective, like Andrew's talking about, are people that are very heartless, soulless. But that is what a corporation is. You know, it's a bunch of people who may, as individuals, have a heart, but you get behind the guise of a corporation and suddenly the corporation's making decisions. They can leave their own moral and human feelings and dilemma out of it and let the corporation decide. That's crazy. That means that the environment doesn't work. That means that the way we do business is like a machine instead of like a living organism, which is what the entire natural world is composed of. It's systems within systems working together. That's what nature is. But business, the way we function as corporations, is clunky machines that just don't quite work well. And my God, look what we're doing. Look what we've done to this world. At what point do we say enough is enough and start getting back into the natural rhythms of our own body, and then watch how our own body is just already in tune with the natural rhythms of these great cosmic cycles that are in and around everything. It's getting to a point where it's common sense at this point.
Oh yeah. Isn't that why we're so easily assimilated into AI? Because we've been, in what you describe, engineered. It's more like a machine. It's not in tune with the natural world. Isn't that, just a part of the grooming so that we're easily assimilated into AI?
Well, video games has made AI grooming very, 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 very easy right now. You look at these massive online games such as World of Warcraft or a variety of other ones. You've generated, at one point it was 15 million people around the world were playing one game live on multiple servers, and a variety of other games that drove these children's lives to who they are today. Many of them have turned out to be personal geniuses, but a good portion of them have turned out to be in their mom's basement or still in their mom's basement without going into any more education because the game has consumed them. Instead of them going into a mechanic's job or flipping a burger or getting their life together and deciding to do something with it, instead of going into this different layer, which has allowed AI to create subsets of usable, abusable people. Like right now, the video game industry has elevated so much, it's called something called esports, where World of Warcraft, StarCraft, Dota, all these first-person shooter games have multi-million-dollar prize pools. Just last year, Fortnite had a $10 or $7 million first place prize. Imagine $7 million for playing a video game. To us, it's inconceivable. But these people who have been groomed to these games have now created their own genre with their own sports, multiple games throughout it, where the prize pool is so much, it is bringing children out of the McDonald's job, out of the car wash job, out of a lot of these other jobs, and they now become streamers on Twitch or YouTube, some of them getting hundreds of thousands of dollars a month, which has then created this way for AI to bracket everybody who's playing these games, whose isn't. How can I target you to fall deeper into this concept, which is an online life completely?
Yeah, the surveillance technologies seem, really extreme in how they are utilizing social media. And we're kind of being tracked and monitored in order to market to us, right? That's the whole point of it, is to know what our wants and our likes and desires are so that we consume what they put in front of us, almost like predicting our behavior. And that's how they kind of mastered psychological operations and false flags, is understanding how the human mind works. And that's why we have to be very spontaneous and creative and just unique in ourselves. Won't that throw them off, or are there predictions based in the programs that we've bought into? But if we're not programmable, isn't that hard to track a person who's in their light, in their uniqueness?
The video game industry is an $84 billion a year business. That's more than print media. Just contemplate that for a second. Now, children can break the programming just like people in our audience have break the programming. Breaking the programming isn't hard. It's staying away from it and falling back into it. That has been the challenge of the awakening. A lot of people have spontaneous awakening and spontaneous, I'm going back to sleep. I can't find anyone to share my thoughts with. Therefore, I'm going back to sleep. And that's why the three of us who have been sticking around have had to change our philosophy to meet the modern vocabulary, or what I call the colloquial now, where 8 years ago, using anything from quantum mechanics associated to spirituality was unheard of. It's because it took somebody like Michael Talbot in the holographic universe to say that consciousness, spirituality, and all of that, they're all one and the same thing. We just haven't figured out how to mix the language yet.
What are your thoughts, Seth? And just thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, what are your thoughts about that? And also maybe take us in a little bit to just your own process of unhooking from addiction. You know, I know you've gone through like a tremendous amount, and addiction goes beyond just substances. I mean, you know, like you're talking about, Andrew, just the social media stuff, the information overload that people are, you know, addicted to. What was that journey like? You know, maybe you can both share. I don't know if Andrew, you want to speak on that after, you know, Seth, but just that part of your life where, you know, you gave those things up and what you discovered and what the breakthrough was before you were able to take that leap.
So I wrote a quote: becoming awakened is one step. Staying awake takes countless steps that can play out over the course of an entire lifetime. And that's what a lot of people in this kind of thing, like Andrew was saying before, people wake up and they go right back to sleep, or they become enlightened, they have a moment of awe and revelation, and then they just shut it right down because whatever, they don't have the support, they don't have whatever it is. But at some point, by being objective, by looking at this current global dilemma that we're dealing with and how you relate to it, I know for me personally, I had to like literally be like, is this how I want to live my life? You know, and it was like, no, I don't want to be like a cybernetic organism. I don't want to be on my phone nonstop all day. I don't want my kid to be playing video games from the morning, you know, from when he wakes up till he goes to bed. Who would I have to be in order to have a different experience, to create a new state of being? And having gone through the level of addiction that I did, you know, it's just for the listeners, for people who don't know, I went through severe heroin addiction, cocaine addiction, crystal meth, every kind, like to the degree where I overdosed countless times and somehow barely managed to survive. And I'm not bragging. I'm not saying that to be braggadocious or to, I'm saying it because by surviving that level of addiction and getting through it and being like, okay, I made it through, but then realizing that the residuals of the imprinting that had on my mind, my body, my emotions was still there to deal with. You know, just because I stopped using the drugs, the addiction was still there. And so that led me into a deeper investigation internally and externally to a degree, but mostly internally, of what is the root cause of addiction? What is it in me that would become so addicted to a substance like that? Because I realized after all the substances were done, which is 20 years ago, over 20 years ago, there was still an addiction to other things, meaning the way I would interact with somebody, the way I would perceive information. I would still go into these default modes of perception that were literally conditioned into me by repetition. So the root cause of addiction, I always thought maybe it's the trauma, maybe it's the whatever, but it was actually addiction to ego, you could say, or addiction to the perception that we are most accustomed to perceiving things in. And I was like, whoa, okay, if that's true, because I could feel it in me. As soon as I would start like hearing something, my stress hormones would kick in. I'd start perceiving things in a way where it was like, oh my God, okay, that's the past. How did that past get there? It's literally neural networks that have embedded themselves throughout all of my body. And they're not just in the brain. There's neural networks through our entire body connected to every energy center. There's plexus centers, there's neurons all through our body. Those aspects of our physiology have been conditioned with the same repetitious thought patterns and behaviors that we have conditioned them to be. We didn't even realize that we did it. So the more I became aware of this, it was like, how am I going to break that? Or what would I do? And it's like, oh, actually, maybe it's not even about breaking it. It's about embracing a greater state of being, you know, by getting into these heart-brain coherent spaces and just making that into a habit. Then suddenly, all that old stuff, all the old neurons that are firing, bringing up the past, bringing up the behaviors, they just don't have a place to live when an individual has truly said, you know what, I am putting my foot down. I am going to stand up for love, but not just the human concept of love, this love that is beyond humanness. It is the creative spark of life. I may not have a direct connection to it, but I know it's there, and I'm going to keep getting into a state of being until that breaks through. I'm going quantum, and doing that over and over and over made it so that that old addiction to ego or belief or the things that are there, they just don't have a place to live, and they go, and then your consciousness literally begins to crystallize as a human being. And that's a whole other thing that we could.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. What are your thoughts, Andrew, on kind of breaking addictions or anything in your own life journey you want to share about some breakthroughs, or just your thoughts?
Everything he said is so accurate, true. I study traumas. I've been dealing with people's traumas as a hands-on direct healer, a psychic. And when I hear what Seth talk about breaking addiction, the same thing goes to the addiction of pain. I have dealt with so many clients that have been in forever pain because they don't want to go see a doctor, or whatever the reason is. They've been living in pain for so long, they're addicted to the way it is. And it sounds funny, how can you be addicted to pain? Humanity's been addicted to pain for a long, long, long time. It's the other side of the trauma coin that we as human beings experience. And being able to turn on that heart-brain coherent frequency to the point where you can literally shut off those inner voices that are constantly bringing up the repetition energy, be it pain, go see a doctor, stop being an ego, thinking you're self-diagnosing everything, so on and so forth. Or maybe it's just about your diet right now. And what Seth had touched on is about they start to dissolve. They're stuck in the body in different organs. What I've discovered, people who have experienced sexual abuse trauma, all of the organs are holding it, as well as the vagus nerve has a series of repetitive voice-based traumas or image-based traumas that constantly are overwhelming the sympathetic and the parasympathetic, which is why it's so hard for many of those people in that situation to stay on that coherent frequency. They've got to be able to outlove it. Oftentimes, people who have been in that level of abuse, love gets reversed in their teachings. Pain is love and love is pain. And you got to be able to change the way that you think internally, hold that new coherent frequency up to the battering storm of dissolve yourself, you're not good enough, and all the other words that are saying you're not good enough, you're not worthy. The challenge is not just spirituality and meditation. It's holding your internal ground and maintaining that coherent frequency. Now, people who have had physical traumas on top of drug abuse or on top of alcohol abuse, whatever it is, they compound something that has an ancestral value to it. A lot of alcohol and drug addiction, if there are other lives that happened for whatever reason, it's being repeated this lifetime for a grander lesson in self-healing, self-nurturing, self-love, self-discovery, because a lot of the self-help communities that are dealing with drug people are bringing up meditation, they're bringing up yoga, all of those basic techniques where you can begin to feel yourself inside your body again. Now, social engineering also has its own traumatic effect on people. Example, the two-party politics, Democrats and Republicans. In all reality, there is no difference between the Democrats and the Republicans. They're all run by the same 17 corporations, okay? 17 corporations to donate the most amount of money to both parties. There is no difference to them. Our perception makes the difference. Our perspective makes the difference, which creates this traumatized effect because deep down inside, you do know there is no difference between the parties. And when our inner core and our outer belief and perspective are constantly at odds each other, this creates a variety of traumas that desensitize us to our own truths. And when we get desensitized to our own truths, we have to learn to accept our faith once again. And accepting faith, cart-brain coherence, quantum this, whatever language you want to use, it's that internal light that you know has been you since the earliest of ages when the consciousness said, hey, I'm a thing, I'm something. Ooh, let me suck on my toes. Oh, how did I know it was a toe? That inner you, whether the leap of faith, the coherence, the science, the this, they're all the same thing. And it all comes through the internal, who you were, who you are, who you will be through your own sets of choices.
Beautiful.
Nice. Yes. Yeah, it's quite a journey. Yeah, I mean that replay, the repetitiveness, where you can hear something from somebody that has nothing to do with your past, and the words that they use or the vibration connected to it can literally make you relive something that has nothing to do with that person. It's crazy.
A lot of people who have gone through a breakup, you know, the last words that you said, this or that, we all experience something to that effect, or a family member dying and there's no resolution. You know, when it comes to addiction, I grew up in a life where I saw addiction everywhere. And I have a little bit of addictive stuff here and there, but nothing significant because I saw so many addictive personalities destroy themselves. I was a limo driver for 10 years. Let me tell you the addictions that I saw and the lives that were absolutely destroyed. No matter what they do, you couldn't get through to these people in any way, shape, or form. And when I left that industry, because Spirit said, your time there is done, you need to go do this now. You need to go public. You need to go forward with what it is you've learned, you've seen, you've heard, you've all these different things. And I made that leap of faith into myself. And I began to understand where I had advanced in my reality was seeing all these people in their various traumas and situations as a database of awareness.
Yeah. So when we see the psychological operations, I mean, and these particular events and movements, aren't they trying to play on our traumas and
Yep.
do exactly that? You know, like bring up something that has been, I mean, just like
everybody's trauma is a little different. There's no cookie cutter trauma.
Right.
So what they're trying to go is, do you like chocolate chips in your cookie? Your cookie could be whatever shape or size it's going to be, but does it have chocolate chips? Or does it have nuts? Or do you have a nut allergy? That's what they're trying to get, because that's what will make you fight back.
It's a broad spectrum approach, I think, is like what you're saying. It's anything and everything to reach out to everybody possible. And as long as people keep giving their attention or their awareness to some external thing, instead of creating really strong internal coherent foundations from the inside out, then we're always going to be distracted or taken out of or just removed from this internal place that is unmovable to all these things.
Do you feel that people fear themselves though? And sometimes and I think, you know, you're touching upon this, the addiction can be the distraction from self because
Yes.
the person fears the inner work. They fear maybe guilt, regret, and those shadow places, that the addiction is a way to escape that process that is crucial for being able to wake up and free oneself of addiction.
Absolutely. Now, that's not everyone, but a good portion of humanity that's trying to maintain the awakeness is fear of their own success, fear of their own power, because that means they have to be responsible for stuff they want to be lazy to right now.
And again, even with that, there's so many different layers and levels. It's true. So many people are so conditioned to just do whatever they think or whatever they're told. But ultimately, when it comes down to it, people are afraid of death. You know, they are afraid of their own death to the degree that they don't know how to live, because that would mean confronting that here and now, but peaceably, you know, in a trusting way, in a leap of faith. But it's only by doing that, that's what I had to do anyway. It was by confronting that with all its glory, with all its fear, with all its horror, that I was able to say, you know what? The part of me that's suffering is so minuscule, it's so infinitesimal compared to the part of me that is great. And it's not me, it's not my ego, it's this energy that is animating me. That is greatness. And so why would I keep focusing on all this stuff that's making me feel not great when I can focus on what's going to make me feel great? And that's really it. It's that willingness, it's that will to live, it's that will to face whatever it is that we don't know, and to trust that we're going to get through it. And not only are we going to get through it, but there might be something way more beautiful, way more incredible, and way more encouraging just waiting for us. But we're never going to know if we're addicted to who we think we are and what we think our day looks like and our job and all the patterns that everybody is addicted to on a moment-to-moment basis.
And wouldn't you say like the vampirism of drama, the addiction to drama and conflict and pushing people's buttons to take their energy? Because I had some exes like that literally it was just for entertainment purposes. It was just like, let me just push these buttons. And I'm like, if you push a certain, you know, bunch of buttons, you're going to regret it. Like,
yeah, exactly. There's going to be a fist.
Yeah, it's like, I'm not your toy, you know, to push my buttons and just get a rise out of me. But isn't there so much unconscious vampirism, would you say?
I would say absolutely. I mean, and I'm sure Andrew would be able to expound upon this and break it down, but I think you and I talked about this in the last talk that we had. Depending on the level of perception that somebody is in, is going to determine how much they are affected by the quote unquote things or the energies that are contained within that limited awareness. But the more you become aware, the less those things have power over you, and the more you're able to see them as not actually vampirism, right? Because when we're in this state that we're most used to being in, we're addicted to, I'm Seth, this is my life, and this is my ex, and she just keeps triggering me and really upsetting me, and I keep being triggered. But the more I expand, the more I allow myself to not be confined by those parameters, the more I'm able to be like, oh, okay, she's triggering me, but if I respond the way I always did, then I'm just going to keep getting the same results that I always got. But she's triggering me, and oh, okay, she's actually stuck. She doesn't even realize she's stuck, but I'm making a choice right here now in the moment to kind of take it on the chin, to take it for both of us and take the high road. I am choosing to rise above the way that I've always responded and reacted to things. And when I do that, then suddenly I'm able to see her. And these are all just examples. I'm not giving anybody in particular here as an example, but I'm able to see these, and anybody is able to see them as, oh, these things that normally were triggering us and keeping us stuck in a repetitious loop are actually there to get our attention, to get us out of it.
Yeah, yeah, like physical symptoms. I mean, everything's a gateway. All adversity to me is like a gateway. It opens doors, but if we let it crush us and stay in the repeat cycle, we don't get anywhere. And taking the higher road, and I'm so glad you said that, because I was just thinking that how that feels energetically is so wonderful. It is so healthy for the body to be in a higher vibration of love and wisdom and compassion, and allowing that part of ourselves to really run the show just makes for a really beautiful and magical existence. And it's right there for us. And all this addiction stuff, God, really sabotages our ability to really enjoy all the greatness that you're talking about, that spark, that what animates us, and how that connects us with the outer, you know, elements, because it's really a reflection of our inner soul, you know, because we're elemental beings. But, yeah, what are your thoughts on all that?
We can begin to dispel a lot of these negative connotations with the addictions and the way social engineering works by taking on a set of word phrases that is equal co-creation, non-competition, non-hierarchical order, non-duality, I am living now. What is equal co-creation? What is non-competition? What is non-hierarchical order? And make those a part of your daily journey of a mantra into saying, I do not need to compete. How much charge and polarity right away is taken away in any conversation, in any political or non-political arena. I am non-competitional. I don't need to compete with you to get justification or to get a dopamine release. Yeah. I can achieve my own dopamine release without using competition.
That's so funny because I used to, when I was younger, I used to lose on purpose because the person was so bent on having to win. I'm like, you know, I mean, right. Just sometimes it's like, okay, I'll let you have this one and I'll just do really bad.
But you still got a dopamine release out of that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was a contact dopamine thing. I'm like, man, yeah. They're all like pumped up and their ego's like, man, I beat her. And little do they know.
Right.
I didn't try or I purposely, I mean, maybe they would have beat me anyway, but it was with the youngins. So when I kind of jumped in, I hope I didn't interrupt you, Seth. Was there something more you were going to say? And Andrew, I just want to give you both just, to expand upon anything. And like, you know, what topics do you feel are really calling you to address today before we close?
Andrew just said something that is so important that I want to, I don't remember exactly how you said it, but we're choosing to create our own dopamine release. That's what we don't realize. When I'll speak for myself, because I've had so much trauma and all the things that have happened to me were so brutal that at one point in my life, I was left with no other choice but to create what I've been calling a bridge of conscious coherence, where essentially I'm becoming aware of the things that I'm unaware of, that I didn't even realize were there, and becoming conscious of them all the way into my normal waking state. And by doing that, I'm shining the light of my own conscious potential, of my own coherent potential on those dark things that I didn't even know were holding me back. And in doing that, in getting into these like unfathomably miraculous, awe-inspiring, just list out internal states of being, I realized that I can create my own feelings from the inside out. Like, okay, so when your energy centers and your body and all these different areas are holding on to trauma of the past, we kind of tend to avoid them. We're like, oh, I don't even want to deal with it because it hurts to go there. But when you've cleansed that and you've gotten it cleared out and you're getting in coherence and you're feeling that coherent energy go to it, which is just from the heart. And we can go more into an explanation of coherence later if you want, just so people know what it is. But you can create feelings inside of your own body throughout every different part of your body that are unbelievable. And when you realize that you are creating feelings from the inside out because you are choosing to, not because somebody's throwing a bunch of shit on you or you're being subjected to the same stuff that you're reacting the same way to over and over again, when you realize you can create feelings inside of you for no reason other than you're choosing to, that is the beginning of what it feels like to take your power back.
Well put. Awesome. Yeah, it's crazy because if we don't do that clearing, it keeps us in the addiction loop, because that foreign energy or that frequency needs to be constantly fed. If we don't, clean it up, it's really hard to break. So, I mean, detoxing is not just a physical thing. We need emotional detox, spiritual clearing, from
spiritual hygiene.
Yeah. So talk to us about spiritual hygiene.
It's one of those things that most people don't realize you can combine those two words together. Just as you would brush your teeth, comb your hair, change your sheets, there's a set of hygiene rules that keeps your spirit clear, your frequency capacity to be high, that reminds that you have backdoors and loopholes into your energies based off of your beliefs, and that you're doing regular inner work to go, What's the back door I've allowed in myself today? Why can somebody trigger me still if I've closed these back doors before? Have I actually done anything to clear myself? Have allowed anyone to help me through hard times? And then having regular systems, be it saging your room, clearing your frequencies, doing a meditation, or having a daily practice that is constantly working at the little different aspects or the everyday aspects of the spiritual hygiene means something to you at the end of the year.
Awesome. What are your thoughts, Seth?
He's absolutely correct. It's like people don't realize how powerful we are to affect our own state of being. And the longer that we ignore that and don't take responsibility for coming into techniques, ideas, thoughts, words, whatever, like there's a bunch of different things that we can do, but we have to do it. It's like Andrew said before, we can't, people are lazy. They're just like, they're socially engineered and conditioned into a state of complacency that has become so routinely accepted as normal. And holy crap, like people, time to break that. Okay, that's the real addiction here. That's like a real strong, powerful addiction that has got all kinds of people who would never think they're addicted to anything. Got them. It's got them right by that, you know. So we, by choosing to break these patterns, by getting out of the way we've always done stuff, then this energy, this spiritual energy that you could say, which again, this isn't philosophy, this isn't a weird thing. There is an energy that is causing our heart to beat. It's causing all these anatomical and autonomic nervous system reactions to take place in our body faster than the speed of light. We are electromagnetic beings. The more we start to think and feel and start taking action steps in our day that bring us closer to being able to identify with that aspect of ourselves instead of the I'm Seth, this is me, this is my problem, this is my life. The more we start to take steps in that direction, the more this energy that is actually animating us starts to have a more holistic thing happen. And that's what brings us to what I was saying before, this crystallization of human consciousness, where we're no longer bound to the beliefs of the past. We're no longer bound to the conditioning of the past. And we're no longer afraid of all the social engineering, of all the different belief systems that are just being projected, the cultural indoctrinations. We're not afraid of that anymore because what we feel in us is so empowering. It is so beautiful that to not focus on it is us deceiving ourselves. So
Totally. Wouldn't you say the virus is connected in a way to all this, and that what you're talking about helps in our ability to shield ourselves, to strengthen our immune system, and to neutralize the effects of things like viruses and dark weapons? What are your thoughts, Andrew and stuff?
First thing first, having an opening to dark weapons means there is something in you that's going to allow it. It's part of the basic shared reality rules that are beyond physics and metaphysics. It's what the soul accepts as the fundamental rules for being here. Why does a bullet kill? Is it because of the laws of physics that we grew up on? A baby doesn't know the laws of physics. Why does a bullet kill? Is it the laws of gravity? So on and so forth. It's belief. And as long as you're giving a belief energy to something, it can hold the iron power of mediocrity over you. And when we're stuck in mediocrity and everyone's battling for first place in mediocrity, how do the really advanced people look? One step above mediocrity? Or are they like the three of us on the show who have broken so far beyond mediocrity, like, hello guys, wake up, knock, knock, 10 years and plus doing this. What else is it going to take? How many more speeches? How many more shows? All right, we're going to have endurance, and we're going to find a way to do this in a joyful state to remind you the iron grip of mediocrity has you. Those dark weapons exist, those dark tools exist, but for every dark weapon and dark tool, there's a light tool and a light weapon that can get you out of it, that can reverse your situation. no matter how powerful the lizard wizards are, they had to learn to do it too. And you can take their tools away from them. We've been doing it with pitchforks and torches since the dawn of humankind. We kicked them out of power many, many, many times. The torch and the pitchfork has been the greatest change. Maybe we all need to have hats that have pitchforks and torches on it. Instead of the middle metaphysical, we're out there going, we're the pitchfork and torch crew. Okay? Belief is everything. And when it comes to those dark tools and those dark weapons that do exist, don't let it make you paranoid, or they've already won.
Yep, that's why I sort of say this a lot, but I mean, looking at the weapons as a tool for our greater growth takes the vibration of the weapon away, and it actually, you know, turns it into something they wouldn't want you to turn it into, because you're not fearing it and being paranoid, because that's part of how it enters, right? So
maybe we should make an online gathering where the meditation is an angry mob with pitchforks and torches going into all the negative centers and burning them all down. I think that would really upset a lot of people, wouldn't it?
Yeah, probably.
You know what? He said something beautiful, and it's funny because it's like an ironic term to combine light weapons, right? He said there's light weapons we can use. But I went on, Andrew invited me onto his comedy show a couple weeks ago. And before we went on, we were talking about it. And he made such a great point that I have just been thinking about nonstop and just so in love with, which is comedy, laughing, just our ability to laugh. Not only is it so therapeutic, but it's like the dark controllers, the dark forces, the things that don't, you know, that keep everything so serious and so grave. They don't want us laughing, because when you start laughing, suddenly you're like, authority? Really? Authority? Like, when you have it within you where you're like, no, I trust life so much, I love life so much, that I'm able to see that there is a really kind of ridiculous cosmic joke playing out through all this, and you're really able to embody that, and you're laughing, like the laughing shamans, you know, like Andrew mentioned. That is a light tool, a light weapon, you could say, that is so powerful, because that's an eternal state of being that you are choosing to generate from the inside. And when you look at everything like that, you're kind of like, like, really? We're so caught up in the seriousness of this. And like he said, everybody's competing for the top of mediocrity, you know, being in that, like, oh my God, like, let's let it go. Let's laugh. Let's be lighthearted, but not in a accusatory, like make fun of people kind of way, in a loving way, in a truly heart-filled way, because it's these types of states of being that empower our body, that empower our awareness, and that feed to the greater spiritual thing that's playing out in all of our lives, whether we realize it or not.
We all have a power at any moment where we can give a collective wedgie to all the negative controllers out there. And I'd like that to be homework for anyone out there that's got the guts or the ovaries or the balls out there to collectively think, how can I give all the people that are running this world a collective wedgie?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Humor's everything.
Laura, you had a comedy side. You grew up doing stand-up, didn't you?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I did a lot of improv, and when I lived in England, I kind of turned the convent upside down. They just made it insane. The nuns were just like, what the hell? Who is this? Yeah, that's been a huge part of my life, just levity, humor, and just, yeah, doing skits all the time and just being crazy. Yeah. It's the only thing that really keeps me sane, because it is a big cosmic joke in a lot of ways. Yeah, demons definitely don't like to be laughed at, and it really protects our energy field from the overwhelm of stress. I knew I would feel so much better talking to you guys today, because I was sort of dragging this morning, and I'm like, oh, I can't wait to talk to these guys. I know I'm just gonna leave this conversation just like, yes, and I'm feeling so uplifted and so much better. Not that I was feeling that terrible, but it's so great to create conversations, because it's so energetic, and it's so encouraging, and it's all just such important and great reminders. Any final, thoughts that you want to, discuss?
As we get closer and closer to the election, they're setting you up for something. And now that you know that, the day after the election will go on, the day after, the day after, the day after. Just be prepared for life to go on. Just because they've given you a date in which your faith is going to be cracked or not cracked, because there's only two sides to the story, there's infinite amounts of sides of the story. Stop battling for mediocrity. Begin to disconnect from it now, because what are they going to try to do after the election? Fractionalize you, marginalize you, and fractalize you so that no one can get together and work together in unity.
And look at to add to that, knowing that that's going to happen, there's always going to be somebody saying something, doing whatever. Isn't that even more of a reason to not feed into it and instead to be in these states that we're talking about? Find a few people who can laugh together, who can have fun, who can just get into this. Because you know what? This state of being, when you've really, really just anchored it into you, is more infectious than sickness. It's more infectious than COVID, than any of the things that are out there. When somebody is truly in love with life and laughing, not bypassing it, because you know what? I could be the biggest victim on the planet, but I love it because it is a constant presentation of something happening at a level way greater than I could normally see. And because I've had that and experienced enough times to know something like that's happening, I am choosing to get into a space of heart-brain coherence, to love my life, to connect with other people who feel similarly and saying, you know what can we create together? Even if it's just a conversation, what can we do? Like, what are the different ways that we can reflect back to each other or remind one another of the beauty, of the greatness, of the wealth of what truly has value inside of each other and inside of this species? That's what I'd like to give everybody.
Yep, that's where it's at. And I just want to keep with that creative flow, and that's the most important thing. And yeah, I think I've kicked enough hornets' nests connected to the election, and that's not a normal vibration for me. I'm very just feeling such resonance with what you guys are sharing, and I just feel just inviting myself back to that zone and really just staying consistent with being in that zone. It's the most important thing. I just kind of like wanted to get enough out to just have my thoughts out there, and it's just like boom. But I can see how easy it is to just get, pulled back in, and I'm going to watch myself because, man, it's just not a good energy at all. And I know better.
You could do 5 days of comedy posting, Laura.
Yeah. You have friends.
What's that?
I said you've got friends who are like,
exactly.
This is it. Like, I know
who need it.
I know each other enough now. Like, I know this is all he's doing. This is all I'm doing. My life doesn't work any other way. If I try to get stuck in drama or any of that, my life doesn't work. So I'm like, it's the greatest thing ever,
Yeah.
Just make a choice. For every political post, 2 comedy posts.
Oh yeah. Well, I can only be true to myself, and I know that my crazy will emerge. The reason I think it's hard is just because I'm doing some interviews with a human trafficking victim who has some things to say, and so I just want to get it out. So it kind of by default sort of pulls me in a little bit because I want to share her story. And so I think after that, it'll be a really important thing to share. And yeah, then I can just go back to feeling more in the vibration that works, that feels like, thriving and expansive and creative and filled with humor. And I just hope we do more of this kind of thing together.
Oh, we will. I think it's been set in stone.
Yeah. Momentum's there. But you know what, like, just real quick, not to get, like, I can feel how much, you're facing this and you're doing it. But with this conversation we had, with this exchange, when talking to this person, and again, not to take away from it, it's the things we perceive in the world around us are very brutal when we're caught up in it. But what can we do other than bring this love, this lightheartedness, even facing the most grave situations, to be able to maintain and hold this state, even when hearing the tragedy, the atrocities, all that, that's going to help. It's going to help a lot.
Yep. And it's the balance is so key. What were you going to say, Andrew?
We need, we need people that are light warriors to stand up to present that information. But at the same time, those light warriors can't be the only source of presenting it. And giving this person a place to speak and allow them to go out and do interviews with hundreds of other people is part of your grander journey of shining the light on these subject matters. And the balance that you experience in yourself to be able to do these presentations, because they are hard. I have done hundreds of them also. Does it mean I won't do any more? I had to make a personal choice that those types of presentations for me long-term were not productive for the human being that I was. You know what you can do. I know what I can do. Seth knows what he can do. When we do things that are beyond our parameters, we take on responsibilities that we aren't ready for. Okay? Exactly. And an example is I have had so many private sessions with very professional people who work in Silicon Valley who all of a sudden are being given a task of looking at child porn and determining if it needs to be sent to the police or not. These are people with like double PhDs in data science, and yet why are they being done this? Because it's a deep, dark secret inside all of the big tech companies, how their services are used and abused, and that this is rampant and it's everywhere. And yet so many of them didn't know what to do because every night they'd go to sleep and see these images in their head. What I helped them do was all get together and talk to each other, and to the point they formed their own .org corporation for anybody that wanted to leave big tech and put the truths out, so that there was a help group for those people that can do that. Because we do need the whistleblowers. We really, really need the whistleblowers in this truth time. But us truthers can't get lost to the disgusting energy that's behind it. We have to have that inner faith, have to have that inner truth, continue the job, which is to help people stay awakened and not destroy ourselves in the process.
Yes, beautiful. Any final thoughts, Seth?
I don't think I could. He's just to say what he said. It's perfect. He's absolutely right. It's true. We're going through these intense processes for a reason, but we have to be discerning enough to not let us knock us out of our center to the best of our abilities. Absolutely. It's true. This stuff has to come out. It needs to be called, because it's the same thing internally. You know, like if I have an addictive circuit or something going on, I call it out. I bring it out into the light of my own new awareness, of my own elevated awareness, because that's what allows it to heal. This is very similar. It's the same thing really, but it's just from an external perspective. So I think there's enough of us who are committed to doing this that we're doing it no matter what. The more support that we're able to provide for people, the more that people can see that they're capable of being in these states too, the better we're going to be able to move through revealing all the garbage, all the stuff that has to come out, and then get into this new place of creativity where, okay, now that we've got our hands dirty and cleaned up the old stuff, let's create new systems. Let's create systems that reflect equality and potential for all. And that's where we're headed towards.
Yay. There's so much encouraging, and there's so much to look forward to. And we don't have to look anywhere but within ourselves to find that great discovery that's going to change everything. And it's in our hands, and it's in the moment, and it's here right now. And it's something that, you know, in every moment we can embrace. We don't have to go out and find it. We just gotta be in recognition and bring it, and just bring it out. I really just enjoyed this conversation, and there's going to be a lot more that we'll get into in the future. And I just thank you so much, both of you, for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Laura.
Yeah, thank you, Laura. Thank you, Andrew.
Awesome.
Okay.
Bye, everybody.